Did you know that fish are swimming in the Dead Sea? It sounds impossible, but it's happening right now. Scientists are baffled, and Christians around the world are in shock. For centuries, the Dead Sea has been a lifeless body of water, too salty for anything to survive. But now, something miraculous is occurring. Could this be the fulfillment of an ancient biblical prophecy? Let's find out. You might not believe this, but an ancient prophecy about the Dead Sea is coming true right before our eyes. Thousands of years ago, two prophets, Ezekiel and Zechariah, spoke of a time when the Dead Sea would transform. They predicted that life would flourish where death had reigned. It sounds impossible, doesn't it? After all, we're talking about the Dead Sea, a place so hostile to life that its very name declares its lifelessness. Let's paint a picture of what the Dead Sea has been like for millennia. Imagine a vast expanse of water so salty that nothing can survive in it. The concentration of salt is nearly 10 times that of the ocean. If you were to swim in it, you'd bob like a cork, unable to sink. But you wouldn't want to stay in for long. The water would burn your eyes and any cuts on your skin. The shores are crusted with salt, creating a lunar-like landscape. It's a place of stark beauty, but also of absolute desolation. For centuries, this description has held true. The Dead Sea has been a symbol of lifelessness, a place where only the hardiest microorganisms could survive. But now something extraordinary is happening. Life is returning to the Dead Sea, and it's happening in ways that align eerily with those ancient prophecies. You'll be shocked to discover what scientists and locals have been observing. Fish have been spotted swimming in areas where they shouldn't be able to survive. Not just one or two, but schools of fish, darting through the waters near the shore. Birds that haven't been seen in the area for generations are returning, their calls echoing across the once silent landscape. Even plants are beginning to grow in places that were once too salty to support any vegetation. These changes aren't happening randomly. They're following a pattern that matches the words spoken by Ezekiel and Zechariah. Ezekiel spoke of a time when fishermen would stand by the shores of the Dead Sea, casting their nets into waters teeming with life. Zechariah described living waters flowing out from Jerusalem, bringing life to the Dead Sea. Could it be that these ancient words are now becoming reality? As we explore these changes, you might find that your understanding of prophecy and the natural world is challenged. How could men living thousands of years ago have predicted such specific changes? And what does it mean if their words are indeed coming true? The Dead Sea is transforming, just as the ancient prophets foretold. It's a change that's causing scientists to rethink what they know about this unique body of water, and it's making believers around the world sit up and take notice. But the story doesn't end here. The changes we're seeing are just the beginning. Let's discover exactly what's happening to the Dead Sea. From mysterious sinkholes to surprising freshwater springs, the landscape is shifting in ways that no one expected. And as we explore these changes, we'll uncover more evidence that suggests we might be witnessing the fulfillment of prophecy in our lifetime. The ground around the Dead Sea is collapsing, swallowing roads and beaches. But beneath this chaos, a miracle is unfolding. Could these dangerous sinkholes be the key to fulfilling an ancient prophecy? Let's explore how nature's destructive force might actually be paving the way for an unexpected renaissance. You might be surprised to learn that the very ground beneath the Dead Sea is changing in ways that seem both terrifying and miraculous. Sinkholes are appearing at an alarming rate, transforming the landscape into a treacherous terrain. But how exactly are these massive holes forming? Picture this. Fresh water seeps into the earth, mixing with layers of salt and silt deep underground. As this happens, the salt begins to dissolve, creating empty pockets beneath the surface. Without warning, the ground above these pockets suddenly collapses, forming giant sinkholes that can swallow entire buildings. The dangers posed by these sinkholes are very real. Roads that once carried tourists to popular beaches now end abruptly at the edge of gaping chasms. Favorite spots where families once spread their picnic blankets have been fenced off, deemed too risky for human activity. The ground has become so unstable that insurance companies refuse to cover any development in the area. It's as if the earth itself is rebelling against human presence. But here's where things take an unexpected turn. In the midst of this destruction, something incredible is happening. The sinkholes are filling with fresh water, creating ponds in the most unlikely of places. These aren't just stagnant pools, they're teeming with life. Imagine standing at the edge of one of these sinkholes. The air around you is thick with salt, and the barren landscape stretches as far as the eye can see. But look down into the sinkhole, and you'll see a completely different world. The water is clear and inviting, surrounded by lush greenery that seems to defy the harsh environment. These freshwater oases are becoming hotspots for wildlife. Birds that haven't been seen in the area for generations are returning, their calls breaking the eerie silence of the Dead Sea shores. Fish are appearing in waters where they should not be able to survive. It's as if life itself is finding a way to return to this place of desolation. Could this be the beginning of the transformation prophesied thousands of years ago? The very disasters that are making the region uninhabitable for humans are creating perfect conditions for nature to reclaim the land. It's a paradox that challenges our understanding of destruction and renewal. As we witness these changes, we can't help but wonder what other surprises the Dead Sea might hold. The sinkholes, once seen as a curse, are now revealing themselves to be unexpected blessings. They're creating pockets of life in a place long considered dead, painting a picture of hope and renewal that aligns eerily with ancient prophecies. But the story doesn't end here. The appearance of life in these sinkhole oases is just the beginning. What other signs of revival might we find if we look closer at the Dead Sea region? Let's explore the specific forms of life that are emerging in this once barren landscape and see how they might be fulfilling prophecies that have waited centuries to come true. As we peer into the depths of the Dead Sea, an impossible sight emerges. Fish are swimming where no fish should survive. But how can aquatic life thrive in water so salty they've been called dead for millennia? The answer might shake your understanding of both science and prophecy. For centuries, the Dead Sea has been synonymous with lifelessness. Its waters, nearly 10 times saltier than the ocean, have created an environment so hostile that nothing could survive. Or so we thought. Recent observations are challenging everything we believed about this ancient body of water. You'll be shocked to discover what's happening beneath the surface. Fish, once thought impossible in these waters, are now being spotted in growing numbers. It's not just a few hardy survivors. We're talking about schools of fish darting through the shallows near the shore. These aren't mutant superfish evolved to withstand the salt. They're ordinary freshwater species, thriving in places where they shouldn't even be able to breathe. But the miracles don't stop at the water's edge. Look up, and you might see a sight that would have been unthinkable just a few years ago. Birds are returning to the Dead Sea in droves. The skies, once eerily silent, now echo with the calls of ducks and other migratory species. It's as if nature itself is reclaiming this barren landscape, bringing life back to a place long considered dead. You might be wondering how this is possible. How can life suddenly appear in an environment that has been hostile for thousands of years? The answer lies in a complex interplay of geological changes and hidden freshwater sources. But there's another possibility that's causing excitement among believers around the world. Could these changes be the fulfillment of ancient biblical prophecies? The words of Ezekiel and Zechariah, spoken thousands of years ago, seem to describe exactly what we are seeing today. They spoke of a time when the Dead Sea would teem with life, when fishermen would cast their nets along its shores. At the time, such predictions must have seemed impossible. Now they're unfolding before our eyes. As we witness this transformation, it's hard not to feel a sense of awe. The Dead Sea, long a symbol of desolation, is becoming a haven for diverse life forms. Fish swim in its waters, birds soar overhead, and plants are taking root in places once too salty to support any vegetation. It's a renaissance that defies easy explanation. But the story doesn't end here. These miraculous changes raise as many questions as they answer. How exactly is this transformation happening? What role does science play in this apparent fulfillment of prophecy? To understand the full picture, we need to dive deeper into the scientific explanations behind these changes. Let's explore how researchers are making sense of this unexpected revival and see how their findings might shed light on both the natural world and ancient religious texts. What if I told you that the key to unlocking this mystery lies hidden beneath the Dead Sea's surface? Scientists have stumbled upon a shocking discovery that not only explains the sea's transformation, but also aligns perfectly with words written thousands of years ago. You're about to witness the moment when modern science and ancient scripture collide. As researchers dive deeper into the changing environment of the Dead Sea, they're uncovering evidence that seems to defy logic. For years, scientists have been studying the dramatic shifts occurring in this unique body of water. They've observed falling water levels, changing salt concentrations, and the emergence of new life forms. But the explanations for these phenomena have been as varied as they are controversial. You might be surprised to learn that not all scientists agree on what's causing these changes. Some point to climate change and human activity as the primary culprits. They argue that increased water usage and rising temperatures are altering the Dead Sea's delicate balance. Others believe that natural geological processes are responsible, citing the region's complex underground water systems. But here's where things get really interesting. As researchers dig deeper, they're discovering that the truth might be a combination of factors, and some of these factors seem to line up eerily well with ancient prophecies. One of the most significant findings is the role of falling salt levels in the Dead Sea's transformation. As the sea's water levels drop, The concentration of salt in some areas is decreasing. This might not sound like a big deal, but it's creating pockets of water where life can actually survive. Fish that would have instantly died in the hypersaline environment of the past are now finding refuge in these less salty zones. But that's not all. Scientists have made an even more startling discovery: underwater freshwater springs. These hidden sources of fresh water are creating oases of life in the midst of the salty sea. It's as if nature itself is providing a way for life to return to this once barren landscape. You might be wondering how these scientific findings relate to biblical prophecy. Well, get ready for a shock. The book of Ezekiel speaks of a time when fresh water would flow into the Dead Sea, bringing life where there was once only death. Sound familiar? It's almost as if the prophet was describing the very springs scientists are now discovering. As we piece together these scientific discoveries, a picture begins to emerge that's hard to ignore. The changes happening in the Dead Sea aren't just random events. They're following a pattern that was described thousands of years ago. It's as if we're watching the pages of an ancient text come to life before our eyes. But the story doesn't end here. These findings are just the beginning of a much larger mystery. As we delve deeper into the specific prophecies about the Dead Sea, you'll be amazed at how closely they match what we're seeing today. Get ready to explore the words of ancient prophets and see how they might be unfolding in our modern world. For centuries, the Dead Sea has been a symbol of desolation and divine judgment. But imagine if an ancient prophet had foreseen its transformation thousands of years ago. That's exactly what we're exploring today as we dive into the remarkable vision of Ezekiel. Picture this. A man stands on the shores of a lifeless sea over 2,600 years ago. He begins to describe a future that seems impossible, a future where this barren wasteland teems with life. This man was Ezekiel, and his words are now shaking the foundations of what we thought we knew about the Dead Sea. Ezekiel's prophecy was so outlandish that for millennia, people dismissed it as mere symbolism. After all, how could fish possibly swim in waters nearly 10 times saltier than the ocean? It seemed as likely as rain falling upwards. But here's where things get really interesting. Ezekiel's vision is starting to align with what we're seeing today. Let's break down the specific elements of Ezekiel's prophecy. He spoke of water flowing from the temple in Jerusalem, making its way to the Dead Sea. This water, he said, would transform the salty sea into fresh water. Can you imagine the shock of those hearing this prediction? It must have sounded like pure fantasy. But that's not all. Ezekiel went on to describe an even more unbelievable sight. He said that fishermen would one day stand along the shores of the Dead Sea, casting their nets into waters teeming with life. Remember, this is a place that's been called dead for millennia. The idea of it supporting a thriving ecosystem was beyond comprehension. Now, here's where things get really exciting. We're starting to see parts of Ezekiel's vision come to life before our eyes. Remember those freshwater springs scientists discovered under the Dead Sea? They're creating pockets of less salty water where fish can actually survive. And those sinkholes we talked about earlier? They're filling with fresh water, creating oases of life in the midst of a salty wasteland. You might be wondering about those fishermen Ezekiel mentioned. While we haven't seen people casting nets into the Dead Sea just yet, The return of fish to its waters is a step in that direction. Birds that feed on fish are returning to the area, creating a chain of life that hasn't existed here for thousands of years. But the story doesn't end here. There are still elements of Ezekiel's prophecy that remain unfulfilled. He spoke of the Dead Sea being completely healed, its waters as fresh as those of other seas. We're not there yet, but the changes we're witnessing suggest that we might be on the brink of an even greater transformation. As we watch Ezekiel's ancient words come to life, it's hard not to feel a sense of awe. How could a man living over 2.5 millennia ago have predicted these specific changes? It's a question that challenges both skeptics and believers alike. But Ezekiel wasn't the only prophet to speak about the Dead Sea's future. As we continue our journey through ancient prophecy, we'll discover another voice that seems to echo through time. Get ready to explore the words of Zechariah and see how they might shed even more light on the miraculous changes happening in the Dead Sea today. Just when you thought Ezekiel's prophecy was extraordinary, another ancient seer steps into the spotlight. Zechariah's vision of the Dead Sea's transformation is so precise, it's as if he had a window into our present day. But there's one detail in his prophecy that hasn't happened yet, and it could be the key to unlocking an even greater miracle. You might be surprised to learn that Zechariah, writing thousands of years ago, spoke of a time when living waters will flow out from Jerusalem. Half of these waters, he said, would go to the Dead Sea. Now, you might be wondering, what exactly are living waters? In biblical terms, this phrase often represents more than just physical water. It symbolizes spiritual renewal and life-giving power. Picture this: a dry, barren landscape suddenly bursting with streams of fresh, life-giving water. That's the image Zechariah paints for us. And here's where it gets really interesting. We're starting to see signs of this very thing happening today. Remember those freshwater springs scientists discovered under the Dead Sea? It's as if Zechariah saw them coming. These hidden sources of fresh water are creating pockets of life in a place long considered dead. Fish are appearing where they shouldn't be able to survive. Birds are returning to shores that have been silent for generations. But here's the really exciting part. Zechariah's prophecy suggests that what we're seeing now is just the beginning. He speaks of a time when these living waters will completely transform the Dead Sea region. Imagine the entire area teeming with life. The salty waters turned fresh, the barren shores blooming with vegetation. You might be thinking, this sounds too good to be true. And you'd be right to be skeptical. After all, we're talking about one of the harshest environments on Earth. But consider this. If someone had told you a few years ago that fish would be swimming in the Dead Sea, would you have believed them? The changes we're witnessing are challenging everything we thought we knew about this ancient body of water. And they're forcing us to look at these ancient prophecies in a new light. Could Zechariah, like Ezekiel, have seen into our future? Here's something to ponder. Two prophets, living centuries apart, both spoke of a time when the Dead Sea would come alive. They couldn't have known about the geological changes that would make this possible. They couldn't have predicted the scientific discoveries we're making today. Yet their words seem to describe exactly what we're seeing. As we watch these ancient prophecies unfold before our eyes, it's hard not to feel a sense of awe. Whether you're a believer or a skeptic, the alignment between these ancient words and modern reality is truly remarkable. But the story doesn't end here. If these prophecies are indeed coming true, what other changes might we see in the future? Could the Dead Sea's transformation be just the beginning of something even bigger? As we consider the implications of these fulfilled prophecies, we're left with more questions than answers. And that's exactly why this unfolding mystery continues to captivate people around the world. The Dead Sea's transformation is more than just an ecological marvel. It might be a sign of something far greater. Imagine if this ancient body of water, long considered a symbol of death and judgment, is actually mirroring the spiritual rebirth of an entire nation. Could the revival of the Dead Sea be a metaphor for Israel's own resurrection? For centuries, Israel has faced periods of struggle and what some might call spiritual death. The Jewish people endured exile, persecution, and the near destruction of their culture. It's as if the nation itself was as barren and lifeless as the shores of the Dead Sea. But just as we're witnessing life return to those salty waters, we're also seeing an incredible resurgence of Israel on the world stage. You might be surprised to learn how closely Israel's modern history parallels the Dead Sea's transformation. After nearly 2,000 years of exile, the Jewish people returned to their ancestral homeland. Against all odds, they established a thriving nation in a region many considered uninhabitable. It's like watching a barren desert burst into bloom, which, incidentally, is exactly what's happening in parts of Israel today. But the parallels don't stop there. Just as hidden springs are bringing fresh water to the Dead Sea, many believe that a spiritual awakening is bubbling up within Israel. You'll be amazed to discover how some interpret these changes as signs of divine restoration. They point to passages in the Bible that speak of a time when God would gather His people from the ends of the earth and restore them to their land. Consider this: Israel's economy is thriving, and its influence on the global stage is growing. It's become a leader in technology, agriculture, and innovation. From a people scattered across the world, they've become a united nation, making significant contributions to humanity. It's as if the very spirit of the country is being revived, much like the waters of the Dead Sea. You might be wondering what these events could mean for the future. If the Dead Sea's transformation and Israel's resurgence are indeed fulfilling ancient prophecies, what other changes might we see? Some believe we're witnessing the early stages of a global spiritual awakening, with Israel at its center. The implications are staggering. Just as the Dead Sea's revival is challenging our understanding of nature, Israel's rebirth is forcing us to reconsider our view of history and prophecy. Could we be living in a time when ancient words are coming to life before our eyes? As we ponder these questions, it's hard not to feel a sense of anticipation. The Dead Sea's transformation might be more than just an ecological phenomenon. It could be a sign of a greater spiritual awakening unfolding in our time. And if that's true, the changes we're seeing now might just be the beginning of something truly extraordinary. But the story doesn't end here. The implications of these events stretch far beyond the borders of Israel. Let's explore how the Dead Sea's transformation and Israel's resurgence are capturing the attention of people around the world, and why this unfolding story might be more significant than we ever imagined. Imagine waking up to find that a place you've always known as lifeless is suddenly teeming with possibility. That's exactly what's happening at the Dead Sea. And the world is watching in awe. But here's the twist. This revival isn't just about ecology. It's become a lightning rod for debate, hope, and even fear. Are we witnessing a miracle, or is there something else at play? The transformation of the Dead Sea has captured global attention in ways no one could have predicted. Christians around the world are in a state of disbelief as they watch what appears to be the fulfillment of ancient prophecies unfolding before their eyes. It's as if the pages of the Bible are coming to life, challenging both skeptics and believers to reconsider their understanding of Scripture and science. You might be surprised to learn that it's not just religious communities taking notice. Scientists from across the globe are flocking to the Dead Sea, eager to study this unprecedented ecological shift. Their findings are sparking heated debates in academic circles. How can life suddenly thrive in an environment that has been hostile for millennia? The answers they're uncovering are forcing us to rethink what we know about extreme environments and the resilience of life itself. But the impact of these changes goes far beyond academic curiosity. The Dead Sea region is experiencing a tourism boom like never before. Imagine floating effortlessly in water so salty you can read a book without sinking. That's the unique experience drawing visitors from every corner of the world. People are flocking to witness firsthand the ecological changes that are making headlines. Yet, this influx of tourists isn't without its challenges. You'll be shocked to discover that the very sinkholes that are creating oases of life are also posing significant risks. Roads and beaches are being closed due to safety concerns, creating a complex landscape for the local tourism industry. It's a paradox that perfectly encapsulates the broader implications of the Dead Sea's transformation. With every miracle comes a new set of challenges. As we watch these events unfold, it's hard not to feel a sense of anticipation. What other surprises might the Dead Sea have in store for us? Could this revival be just the beginning of a larger global phenomenon? The world is holding its breath, waiting to see what happens next. The Dead Sea's transformation is more than just a local curiosity. It's become a global talking point that's challenging our understanding of science, faith, and the natural world. Whether you're a believer seeing divine intervention or a skeptic searching for scientific explanations, one thing is clear. The Dead Sea's revival is sparking worldwide curiosity and debate like never before. But the story doesn't end here. As we've seen, these changes are just the beginning of what could be a much larger, unfolding narrative. What other incredible events might we witness in the coming years? Let's explore what could be next in this extraordinary journey of transformation and prophecy. If the Dead Sea's transformation has left you stunned, brace yourself. The next phase of prophetic fulfillment could reshape our world in ways we can scarcely imagine. What if I told you that the changes we're seeing now are just a prelude to something far more extraordinary? Let's take a moment to recap what we've witnessed so far. The Dead Sea, once a symbol of lifelessness, is now teeming with fish. Birds are returning to its shores, and freshwater springs are creating oases in the desert. These changes align eerily with the prophecies of Ezekiel and Zechariah, spoken thousands of years ago. It's as if we're watching ancient words come to life before our eyes. But here's where things get really interesting. These fulfilled prophecies are just the beginning. There are aspects of these ancient predictions that haven't yet come to pass. And if they do, the world as we know it could change dramatically. You might be wondering what else these prophets foretold. Well, get ready for a shock. Some interpretations suggest that the Dead Sea's transformation is just one sign of a much larger spiritual awakening. Ezekiel spoke of a time when Israel would be fully restored, not just physically, but spiritually. Could the revival we're seeing in the Dead Sea be a precursor to a nationwide spiritual renewal? But it doesn't stop there. Other prophecies hint at global events that could follow this restoration. Some believe we might see major geopolitical shifts, with Israel playing a central role on the world stage. Others interpret these prophecies as signs of the Messiah's return. Imagine the implications if that were to happen. You're probably wondering about the timeline for these events. Well, that's where things get a bit tricky. While some of Ezekiel's prophecies have clearly been fulfilled, others remain in the future. Experts believe that approximately 75% of Ezekiel's prophecies and 81% of all biblical prophecies have already come true. This leaves us on the edge of our seats, wondering when and how the remaining predictions might unfold. The potential global implications of continued prophetic fulfillment are staggering. We're not just talking about changes to a single body of water, or even a single nation. If these prophecies continue to come true, we could be looking at a fundamental shift in the way the world operates. Political alliances, religious beliefs, even our understanding of history and science could all be challenged. You might find it hard to believe that events happening in a small corner of the Middle East could have such far-reaching effects. But remember, the Dead Sea's revival is already capturing global attention. People from all walks of life are watching in wonder as this once lifeless sea springs to life. It's forcing us to reconsider what we thought we knew about the natural world and the possibility of ancient predictions coming true. As we stand on the brink of what could be a new era of prophetic fulfillment, one thing is clear. The world is holding its breath, waiting to see what happens next. Whether you're a believer or a skeptic, the unfolding events at the Dead Sea invite us all to look at the world with new eyes. Could we be witnessing the dawn of an age long foretold? Only time will tell. As we wrap up our journey through the miraculous transformation of the Dead Sea, it's clear we've witnessed something truly extraordinary. Ancient words, once dismissed as impossible dreams, are springing to life before our eyes. Fish swim where nothing should survive. Birds soar over waters long silent. It's as if the pages of prophecy are turning right in front of us. But here's the thing. This isn't just about fulfilling ancient predictions. It's an invitation to see the world differently. Whether you're a devoted believer or a hardened skeptic, the Dead Sea's revival challenges us all. It makes us question what we thought we knew about nature, history, and maybe even the divine. You might find that this story has changed how you look at the world around you. After all, if life can flourish in the Dead Sea, what other miracles might be waiting to unfold? It's a powerful reminder that sometimes hope can spring from the most unlikely places. Even in the saltiest, most barren landscapes, new life can take root and thrive. So as you go about your day, keep your eyes open. The next miracle might be right around the corner, waiting for you to discover it.